Manufacturing station.
Okay.
That's the legislative section there.
They go back and
More of the folks grow on the other side.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Christy, I'll be up there around 4:30 today, showing that, where country.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where they're moving out. I got somebody else coming in.
Oh, nice.
No, they're interested at least. We'll see.
Yeah, that's good. Good to have a floor. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Carrie, would you please come up for invocation? You may be seated.
Hello. Hi, everybody online. I have a Hindu prayer today. This is from the Rig Veda. So there are 4 or 5 Vedas. Those are ancient Sanskrit texts. So I thought this one was interesting for us. Let us be united. Let us speak in harmony. Let our minds apprehend alike. Common be our prayer. Common be the end of our assembly. Common be our resolution. Common be our deliberations. Alike be our feelings. Unified be our hearts. Common be our intentions. Perfect be our unity. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. So for those of you that don't remember, as an effort, as part of what we're trying to do as a club to become more diverse, just making sure that people know that you can do invocation for any denomination for which you feel comfortable. So if you want to come up here and you want to give the most Christian invocation, you're absolutely welcome to, but to be respectful of somebody who comes up and gives us a Hindu invocation, or any other religious or non-religious invocation. So a couple other announcements. We did have our first meeting this last Thursday. It went as well as could be expected, but we would love to see some additional turnout at some of the meetings in the future. So continue to invite people both to this meeting, which I see we have more people back that haven't been here in a while, which is exciting, but back to this meeting, new members to this meeting, and new members to the Thursday evening meeting. So for those that the schedule doesn't work for this time, to come to and join us on Thursdays. If we could have a brief board meeting after this meeting, just to vote on a couple membership applications. Are there any other announcements from the floor? Doug, would you like to come up, please?
Hi, I'm Doug from Sarah Harding. On this Friday at 2 o'clock, we have a chili cook-off, which is a fundraiser for the Alzheimer's Association. You're more than welcome to come join us. It is a $6 donation requested. And I believe you can try up to 12 different chilies. I told everybody we'd have a Tom's table just in case.
Thank you, Doug. Any other announcements from the floor? Okay, with that, I'll turn it over to Braden for fellowship.
The rousing applause and don't get too, nervous.
Yeah, thanks for the rounding one applause each. All right, anniversaries this week. We have a lot of them. Kathy Forrest, 6 years. Rich Klon, 11 years. Norland Hinkie, 18 years. Chris Farwell, 25 years. And Mike Cromer, 9 years. And then birthdays this week, there's just one, Chris Farwell, which is today. Our birthday gift to you will be not singing. So we're not gonna sing. Guests this week, looks like we have some guests up front here.
I have Sabrina Lippens from the Clinton Community School District, and she is one of our nighttime club members. Stand up. Welcome her.
Christy,
And I brought my favorite son and my favorite daughter, London and Leo. If you guys want to stand up.
Stand up, say hi.
You looking on stage, stand up.
Carrie, you have a guest?
Please help me welcome Steve Clements, our Executive Vice President at Citizens First Bank.
And Rod, you have a guest?
Yes, actually, it's supposed to be Mary's guest, but she's ill today, so she asked me to introduce, Joe Brown. Joe's a former Clinton, or grew up in Clinton, and is a retired superintendent from Minnesota, and is returning to town.
Well, welcome to all our guests. I've got some Iowa sports trivia this week for our questions. So starting with Rod's table in the back. This baseball Hall of Famer was known as the Heater from Van Meter.
I met him. I met him, yeah.
Any guesses?
They're all reaching for their wallets.
Dennis, what's the answer?
I remember meeting him, but I don't remember his name. It was over in Sioux City at a baseball game. Got his autograph. Bob Feller.
Bob Feller. is the
That's
answer.
it.
Feller played on a Legion baseball team with this Iowa Hawkeye legend up here, Paul Stable.
Brian knows.
It is Niall Kennick. All right, middle table here.
No, he's ours today. We have him next week.
All right, we're going with some Iowa State trivia now. Iowa State University's football stadium is named after Jack Trice, a former player. How many games did Jack Trice play for Iowa State?
Most of them.
No. He played 2. In the game against Minnesota, the Minnesota players were trying to injure him because he was black, and he sustained injuries from the game and died shortly after. So it's kind of tragic history, but that's part of the reason they named the stadium after. All right, Andrew, your table.
It's Brian's table.
This Hall of Fame quarterback spent part of his childhood living in Comanche.
Terry Bradshaw.
Yes. Alrighty, back to Chris's table. This Cedar Rapids native has won golf's 2 biggest major tournaments, and he won them at the sport's 2 most famous courses, Augusta National and St. Andrews. Correct. Now up front, anybody can answer here. This Iowa gymnast won gold on the balance beam at the 2008 Olympics. Yes. All right, that's all I've got. So.
Yay.
Thank you, Braden. He said he was pinch hitting. That seemed pretty prepared to me, so. But now we will turn it over to Dennis to introduce today's speaker.
At one point, when I was working in Kansas with the Chamber of Commerce, we had the aforementioned Terry Bradshaw as our annual meeting speaker. When we got into the car that night, we had about 900 people at our annual meeting. My wife just said, I could feel my brain cells dying. So at some point, see me privately, and I would share insight as to when I said to Terry Bradshaw, I said 900 people here, and the three of us are the only ones that have ever been to Comanche, Iowa. His hands just quivered like a 4-year-old who had just been drinking Mountain Dew. And he was so thrilled and excited. And he was telling me all about the last time he'd been up here and had been seen here and all that. But anyway, see me privately. I'll tell you about what it was like to talk to Terry Bradshaw. So anyway, with us today, and glad that he came over, is Mike Ralston. And Mike's in his 17th year with the Iowa Association of Business and Industry. There are a couple different people in the room and in the community that have been and are currently serving on his board of directors. But we'll turn it over to Mike, and he'll talk a variety of things related to business and what's happening in Iowa. Please welcome Mike Ralston.
Good afternoon, everyone. I've had the pleasure of speaking to the club twice before, once while I've been at ABI and once when I was the director of revenue for the state of Iowa. And I don't know what you all did to Dennis to have him bring me back to see you again, but thank you very much. I look forward to it. And I couldn't help but think when we're translating things from Hindu that at one time Tom was in the office and we had something we couldn't translate, and he looked at it and said, I think it says finish Highway 30. So as far as I know, you're right, Tom. Really is my pleasure to be here. Many of you know Rich Phelan. Rich and Tom are both longtime members of our board of directors. Tom's not now because he's engaged in other things, but Rich is still a board member, and he's going to be our chairman in a couple of years. And when he found out I was coming today, he said, oh gosh, I think I have a doctor's appointment that day. And sure enough, he called and found out he did. So we won't see Rich today, but we always like to see him when we come here. Congratulations, by the way, on the new Grow Iowa, Grow Clinton organization. That made a lot of press in Des Moines. Seriously, everybody saw it, and that's pretty big news. Dennis asked me to cover a lot of things, and so I'll do that. And I'm going to move pretty quickly because I understand that I'm the only thing between you and the rest of your day. And so I promise what I lack in eloquence, I'll try to make up for in brevity. First, let me tell you a little bit about our organization, the Iowa Association of Business and Industry. ABI is Iowa's manufacturing and general business trade association. This is our 119th year. It started as the Iowa Manufacturers Association, and then in the 80s expanded to include businesses of all types. And a lot of times when people think of ABI, they think of global companies like LyondellBasell or Nestle or ADM, John Deere, those kinds of folks, and they are great members and we appreciate them very much. But you all know in Iowa, there are a ton of other businesses. A typical ABI member is usually smaller, privately held oftentimes. Here in town, Collis, Nelson Corp, Custom Pack, Sethnus, many others here in the Clinton area. And so we're really grateful for all that support. I want to tell you a little bit about what ABI does, but before I say that, we have a line that we like to use at ABI because it's true. As far as we know, taken collectively, ABI members employ more Iowans, pay more taxes, buy more goods, and donate more time and dollars to Iowa communities than any other single organization, and we're pretty proud of that. We do a lot of things at ABI like you would expect, but they're all tied to three main things. One is public policy advocacy, and so we have all the things you would imagine come along with what we think is a pretty high quality public policy advocacy organization. We have 3 full-time lobbyists, we have a political action committee, we have a grassroots organizing tool. And boy, I think our lobbyists are great. They do really great work, women and men that are at the top of their field. But the real secret to our success in public policy is people like you. You all have great relationships with your legislative delegation or to transportation commissioners, that sort of thing. And so it's that kind of a relationship that's really important. And we're grateful to our members for their leadership in that way. Our second main function is member training and events. We do about 100 events all over the state all year long. We've had many events in Clinton over the years. Boy, lots of things about exciting topics like how to have an effective drug testing program or how to keep up with environmental compliance, those sorts of things. But the kinds of things that are, needs for businesses, they want to make sure that they have the information they need. Our biggest annual event every year is our annual Taking Care of Business Conference. It's really our convention. This year, it's going to be held June 14th through 16th in Dubuque. We've got some terrific speakers lined up from Ford Motor Company and other places, and we think it's going to be a good show. Rich will be the chair in a couple of years, and I believe, although he hasn't made a final decision yet, I believe the conference will be in the Quad Cities that year. And then lastly, we have a foundation that is focused on leadership and community development. And I say this not to blow smoke or try to ingratiate myself with you, but Clinton is a pretty great area, lots of good things going on here. And the whole state is not like that. And so we have these foundation programs like Leadership Iowa University, Business Horizons. By the way, Business Horizons is a week-long entrepreneurial camp for high school students. And we take about 100 kids and put them through this program every year so they understand they have great opportunities right here in Iowa. And the wonderful thing about that is when they come in on Sunday, those kids do not want to be there. And they want us to know they don't want to be there. But by the end of the week, they've learned that they have some real opportunities and that they have a future here in Iowa. And they've made some friends and they don't want to leave. But that's our effort to help communities in other parts of the state that don't have everything going on. So we put people through these programs. The goal, obviously, is to get them to go back to their company and their community and try to make them a better place to do business and to recruit people. So we work really hard on that. I'm going to skip some stuff here because I know I've shared it with you in the past. And Dennis has a pretty keen memory. He'll know that, and I don't want to bore him. So we're going to get going to some other stuff. One of the things that Dennis asked me to talk about was the legislative session. And I thought by now I might be talking about the 2023 legislative session, but that's not the case. The legislature was scheduled to adjourn tomorrow. That won't happen. It may not happen next Tuesday. The hope is that by the end of April, they'll adjourn. But a couple things are going on right now. One, there's a pretty intense legislative struggle between those who support the governor's plan to use public dollars for private schools and those who do not believe that public money should be used to fund private schools. And so right now, that's sort of the issue that is dominating debate at the legislature. We don't see that because these debates happen in caucus. The Senate passed a bill. It's in the House. The House has a group of members of its majority caucus. I think you all know, obviously, the governor's a Republican. She's a great supporter of manufacturing, by the way, and we really appreciate that and never take that for granted. The Senate is controlled by Republicans and the House is controlled by Republicans. But there's a great diversity of opinion among House members related to this issue. And so kind of everything is on hold until that issue gets decided. And I saw one thing last week that one of our lobbyists pointed out to me. In one of her speeches last week, the governor said, I'm committed to this issue. And if I don't get it this year, I'll come back. And so that may be, a sign that there's been a realization that that's not going to happen this year. And so if that's the case, the legislature can get pretty busy on some other issues and get some things done and get out. And we hope that happens. A couple of things that we've worked on this session and that we're going to continue to work on. There was a major tax overhaul, and we were very supportive of the bill that passed. It's going to mean significant tax reductions for every Iowan. And we think that's pretty important. There's still some details to work out. There are a couple of bills related to the way research and development costs are taxed in Iowa. That's under consideration to change. And then there's another bill that would relate to single factor formula that Dennis and I were talking about before we started, which is a huge part of Iowa's tax code. We want to make sure that stays the way it is, but we want to make sure the legislature gets credit due it. The governor, the House, the Senate all worked very closely on this bill that was bipartisan in the end, and we think that's pretty exciting. I mentioned a while ago that we work on these very exciting, glamorous issues. There's one now that would relate to Iowa's Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund and the way that operates. That's not very exciting, but it's important to business, and that's kind of our remaining big priority. We hope it gets done. We believe it will get done. A bill has passed both chambers, but it's not identical, so obviously that will have to be either amended or worked out in conference, but that will we believe that will take place. Some other things that don't get a lot of attention but are pretty big. Lots of work by the legislature to help expand childcare options in Iowa, to help housing in Iowa. That takes the form of grants and loans to communities. We think that's important. The governor's signature program of a couple of years ago, Future Ready Iowa, is really an effort to get Iowans trained and to get them employed. And there's some bills around that would help bolster that. And we think those are important. So I never get to come and talk about the exciting issues you hear about in the newspaper. That's okay with me, but a lot happening that the legislature, both Democrats and Republicans, probably don't get credit for. People ask all the time, is your organization a Republican organization? And I say, no, it's a business organization. I will say that typically Republicans have been more supportive of some of our options, but I'm really proud to say I don't know of another organization in the state that supports both parties as well as our organization does. I always say we'll support a Democrat, a Republican, a Whig, or a Tory if they'll support us. And so we're going to keep that up. So that's maybe enough about the scene from the Capitol, but I'm happy to talk more about that if you have some questions at the end. Let me talk with you a little bit about what our members see. And again, many of you in the room are members. And I blew it already. I should have started by saying thank you. If you're a member of ABI, I want you to know we don't take that support for granted. And thanks for your support. We survey members all the time. Our last quarterly survey had a real surprise for me. The surprise wasn't that 67% expected sales to rise in this coming quarter. 65% intended to hire in the coming quarter. And that's not a surprise because you all probably know that every business in the state has been looking for people for a long time. But the thing that really struck me and that really surprised me was that 76% of those who responded to the survey expect to make a capital expenditure in the quarter that begins June 1. Boy, that's amazing. That means that they're going to expand their plant. They're going to buy a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment. They're going to do something that takes a major commitment in terms of money and time. And that's a great testament to how they see the business cycle right now. It's also a great thing for Iowa. And we were pretty excited about it. So we're really happy about that. The one thing I will tell you that for the first time, normally when people respond to our survey, and by the way, we have about 1,500 member companies, when they respond and say, we expect sales to rise, we expect to hire, we expect to make a capital expenditure, boy, they're pretty happy and they're pretty pleased. But that was not the case. I'd say cautious optimism is really what kind of framed the responses to the survey. Folks are very concerned about a number of things. Of course, they were concerned about would they be able to find the right people. But they were all concerned in a big way about supply chain. You've heard that all over the place, and our members are no different. Can they get the components they need to make their products? If they can, what's the cost going to be like? How expensive will it be compared to what it was a year ago? Will it be the same quality? And so those are the kinds of things that members talked about. That inflation, the war in Ukraine, as you would imagine, all those things were on the mind of folks. And then lastly, a number of people mentioned the pandemic, and we're very hopeful that the worst is over, but concerned it might not be. So I'll just share with you that we think the state of business in Iowa is pretty positive right now, but lots of things to keep an eye on and lots of things to not worry about, but to keep in mind. Let's see, I'm really worried I'm going on too long here, but I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a program we have called Elevate Advanced Manufacturing. If you go to elevateiowa.com, you can see all about it. And it's our attempt to help members recruit workers. It has three goals. One is to raise the profile of manufacturing careers, understanding that too many people still think manufacturing is a dirty dead-end job, when really, statistically, it's the best job in the state in clean and high-tech environments. And so we want to make sure that students and their parents know that they can have a real successful and rewarding career in manufacturing. That's number one. Number two, we want to make sure those folks get the training they need. And so we have a formal partnership with Iowa's community colleges. Eastern Iowa Community College is one, Clinton Community College. And we work hard to get students the training they need, get them into programs at the community college. And then the third goal, you can probably figure it out, is to get those students employed at an ABI manufacturer or other business. And we've had some success. We want to keep it going. We've really understood that we need to, it wasn't this way in the beginning. We thought we were talking to students. We now know we're talking to students and parents. And so typically we'll have an event at a manufacturer, and We'll have students and their parents in, always feed them. We found out that's a critical component. So pizza or something else. We'll do a tour of the plant, and then we'll also have somebody, a young person who's employed at that plant, talk with them about the career that she or he has and the kinds of careers that they can have. And again, we've had some success, and so we want to really keep that going. One of the other things that Dennis and I talked about was the pandemic and what it meant to manufacturers in the state and how they dealt with it. And so if it's all right, I'm just going to take you through kind of 7 steps that we saw at ABI on a timeline and let you know what our members saw and how we tried to help. The first was ABI members were concerned, as you would imagine, about the health of their employees. And so the first concern and the thing that we responded to was requests from our manufacturing members and other members too about how to keep people safe. What can we do to make sure that is going to happen? And so we worked a lot on that and helped manufacturers source hand sanitizer and all those sorts of things, as you would imagine. Also to find plexiglass that wasn't as easy as you might think it was. Again, so that they could keep their employees safe. Boy, the next thing right on top of that was they want to keep operating. You know, there were states across the nation that figuratively at least shut down. And Iowa manufacturers were very concerned that if they can keep their employees safe, they want to make sure they can stay in operation. And boy, I'm not trying to make a political statement here. I'm going to just make what I believe is a factual statement. Businesses in this state had no stronger supporter than Governor Reynolds. Time and time again, she and her staff were helpful to manufacturers in the state when they wanted to keep operating again, all with the idea that we've got to do that, but we can only do it if we can keep employees safe. And so we spent a lot of time on that. The third thing that showed up, and it didn't take very long either, was huge supply chain issues. We had a lot of members calling us to say, well, our vendors in New York, they're shut down. We can't get the product, so we can't make our product without that component. So we did a lot of work when it came to helping folks identify new vendors and new suppliers. And I will tell you, you know, nobody wishes ill will on anyone, but Iowa businesses were able to get new business because they stayed open. We had a business in Cedar Falls that makes, and I know you're going to think this sounds kind of silly, but they're the industry leader in what they do, and that's stuff for golf courses. So they make the cups and the flags, the pins, the tees, those sorts of things. They had a major supplier in California. That plant was shut down. We helped them locate somebody in Missouri. They were able to keep going, and they've got incredible market share now because they were able to keep going and they were able to to provide product for orders when other folks couldn't. So that was a big one, supply chain issues. Not too far after that, the fourth issue happened, and that was a real concern about capital and liquidity. In some cases, businesses that have been around for over a century were having trouble maintaining their operation because their capital was tied up. They didn't have the liquidity they thought they'd have. And so we tried to help people identify new financing sources and that sort of thing. The good news, as far as we know, of all our members that had that issue, they were all able to find help and stay in operation, keep their employees going, good for their employees and good for their families. Another thing that happened, sort of the fifth issue, was manufacturers in the state, and I'll bet some in Clinton too, realized that they needed to retool. They needed to help make personal protective equipment, that sort of thing. I know of a manufacturer in north central Iowa that makes engine components. So they deal with hard things, and they ended up retooling a whole line to make personal protective equipment like gowns and masks and that sort of thing. That's not easy to do for a manufacturer, but they've done it. Other manufacturers that were distilleries have added hand sanitizer and those sorts of things to their product line, and they've kept it. So it's not easy to retool, but they've kept it, and they've been able to, again, add those products to their product line, and that's probably good. The next thing we saw was sort of a surprise, but manufacturers expanded inventory on both ends. You've all heard about just-in-time inventory, and boy, I think Iowa manufacturers took that to heart. And so they didn't carry a lot of equipment and parts they needed to make their final product. And they didn't keep a lot of stuff on the lot that was finished. And so it became a real challenge to meet orders when they didn't have the inventory. And so now what we've seen among our members anyway, it ranges from a global manufacturer like John Deere down to a smaller manufacturer. They've expanded on both ends. So they get more parts, more components in the front door and store them, which is obviously a cost. But the good news is, and it allows them to meet the orders, to make the products they need. And then they keep more product on the final end, whether that's in a lot or a warehouse or something like that, so that they can meet the demand that they have. Lastly, we spend a lot of time on helping employers get their employees vaccinated. I'm not aware of an ABI member. Well, that's not true. There were some ABI members that mandated vaccines, but for the most part, ABI members wanted to get those folks who wanted vaccines. They wanted to help them get them. And so we worked a lot with state and federal officials to set up vaccine clinics, those sorts of things. And it we think was helpful and was a big part of helping some of our members get over the pandemic when they did. And again, I don't know if we'll ever be over the pandemic completely, but at least able to manage it and manage its impact on their business. The things that manufacturers are doing now that have been permanent changes since the pandemic. One was a real commitment to employee health and safety. We think they had that before, but boy, they've really done it again. Secondly, is this inventory management change I talked with you about. I don't think that's going away. And related to that is, boy, they've sourced vendors who are a lot closer to wherever they're located than China. And I don't think that's going to go away for a long time. And lastly, they've added those new products to their product line. A big part of the pandemic and managing the impact was relationships with partners. At our organization, we have a ton of partnerships. We really believe in the power of partnerships. Community colleges, as I mentioned, are one of those key partners. State government ended up being a key partner in all this, and really made things, we think, happen more quickly. I want to make sure I'm not taking some of your papers, Madam President. So I don't know, I've taken some of this out because you've heard it before. I don't want to go on too long, but I don't want to shortchange you either. I'm grateful to be here. Are there any questions about anything I've shared or anything I should have covered that I didn't? And if not, yes, sir.
Of course, there's a lot of change because of sanctions of Russia. How is that impacting people in Ireland?
Well, at least our members, the same way it's impacting all of us. One, it's certainly added to inflation. So we're all seeing the cost of that. It has certainly added to closing of markets. You won't be surprised probably to know that we're very much a free trade organization. We think more markets are good. That whole market in Russia and thus other areas close to it has closed. So that's a big change. And I think the real change is the uncertainty it's provided to the global economy. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. Maybe you all do this too. I try to attend every free thing I can or participate online, related to Russia and the war in Ukraine. And I've not heard anybody say it's going to be over quickly. So I think we're going to be seeing these impacts for a long time. Certainly inflation, some financial pressure when it comes to capital, and certainly closed markets for a while too. So we'll just have to brace for it. Yes, sir.
Any concerns rising interest rates are going to affect capital investments from businesses?
Oh, very much so. That's one of the reasons I was so surprised to see the percentage of members who plan to make capital expenditures. In many ways, though, many of those things have been in the works. They've locked in the capital they need to make these expansions, and so that's good for this coming quarter. But I'm certainly concerned about what it means for the future. A lot of talk about the midterm elections and how that will go. Just historically, it typically doesn't go well for the party of the incumbent president. That will undoubtedly have an impact on what the president's policy is. Should loosen up capital, we think, and that's probably a good thing. But it's a challenge. Again, the good news is a lot of folks have locked in what the capital they need and the rate that they're going to pay right now, and that's great. Yes, Tom.
State lowered the state income tax to 2.9. They say the goal is to go to 0. Think about that.
Thanks very much for asking that, Tom. I think we all think it'd be great to have a 0 income tax rate. Certainly, if you're in a border state like you all, the good news is at least you don't have to make the same competition that they do in Sioux City with South Dakota that doesn't have income tax rate. I know this though. I don't want to live in a state that can't provide the services it needs to get things done. But this General Assembly has been pretty remarkable at the way they've proven they can do things finance them. And if they can finance it, who wouldn't want to pay a zero income tax rate? I think that'd be great. So we'll just have to wait and see. But it's a pretty dramatic step they've taken so far, and one that they haven't yet anyway got all the credit they might have.
Thanks.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. Yes, sir.
We have a significant labor shortage in
Mhm.
Clinton.
Mhm.
Is there, I know that's kind of statewide, is there anything at the state level to help businesses attract people from other states?
Yeah, there are a number of things. One is this Future Ready Iowa program I talked about that the governor created, provides all sorts of incentives related to training. It also pays people. Let's say you're a single mother who has childcare issues and transportation issues. Future Ready Iowa program will pay you a stipend so that you can deal with those issues while you're going to school and get the training you need. Many employers, you probably know, are doing what they can to train their employees. But there's also a major campaign that the Iowa Economic Development Authority has started to advertise in other states to ensure that people know that they can find a job here. Various, I don't know whether Grow Clinton has done it, I wouldn't be surprised if they have, but various regional economic development agencies have reached out in that way to other places. I will say, I think that the verdict is still out on whether it's enough. But it's funny, I was driving over here today and I passed the exit for Comanche, and the last time I was there was to visit Detterman Industries. So it's been a while, but I thought, I remember when I went to Comanche the first time, I think Tom said something to me about, Comanche, it's pretty tough here, but if you're in Clinton, you can usually find people. And then if I talk to somebody in Clinton, they'll say, well, it's kind of tough here, but if you're in the Quad Cities, you can find people. Then if you talk to folks in the Quad Cities, they'll say, well, it's tough to find people, but if you're in Chicago, you can find them. So it really is. I mean, it's all over. And I think what we do is we just do all we can. A part of the reason that legislators want to take the income tax to zero is they think that'll be a great people recruiter, and could be. So we'll
Have we
see.
talked at all about bringing in some immigrants?
Yes, in fact, the governor has two initiatives underway. One is an initiative to deal with Afghan refugees, get them to Iowa. A little challenge in making sure they have the resources they need to help those people, but that's already underway. She's also talked about, not only she, but members of the legislature of both parties have talked about a real effort to get Ukrainians here. And I know that's underway. In fact, there was a bill filed to provide funding for that. I don't honestly know where that is, but yeah, very much a focus. You bet. That's another thing sometimes people are surprised about. Our organization very much, we want to support those efforts. Iowa needs people. And so if we can do that, do it responsibly, do it legally, and help bring people here and have them have a great life, wow, we sure want to do that. Well, you've been very kind to me. Thanks so much for having me here today. Have a great day. Well, okay.
Thank you, Mike. Each week, our club donates a book to the Children's Department of the Clinton Public Library on our speaker's behalf. So this week is Elephant Learns to Share. So.
Way better than a mug or a pen. Thank you.
So if we could get you to sign the inside cover of that.
I know just how much that'll mean to this young child who's going to read it.
Well, you're famous amongst the elementary school students now. Thank you to our guests for being here, Sabrina, London, Leo, Joe, Steve. And I'd like to point out that Steve is a guest, but they are making use of their corporate membership today. So thank you for being one of our first corporate members. Thank you to Andy and Rod, Andy and Rod for speaking today, or for greeting today, excuse me, and not speaking, no. I'm sorry. Invocation, Carrie, fellowship, Braden. Thank you, Dennis, for arranging for our speaker, Mike. Mike, thank you for speaking. I think we all learned a lot. You asked if we had questions, and I was just sitting there trying to process everything. But I did take away one thing. We should have food at those Thursday evening meetings because it gets people there. So thank you all for being here. With that, serve to change lives. And board members, up front quick, please.
So I remember this would have been when I was.
If Shannon or Jill or both of you can stay, hi Jill.
And I saw.
We should be okay.
Yeah, I'll stay online.
Yes, sir.
You're good at computer.
And I said, I just got over and I said, you know, the strategic change of commerce on Lincoln about, hey, good job, come work down in Topeka. And I said, what was interesting was that.
Hi, Dave. Nice to see you. Great to see you. Great, good, good. I have a comment on,
Yes.
well, if you. I think.
Got two online, Shannon and Jill are both online. We're actually separate here.
Because I need a paycheck. I like to get paid.
Okay. So.
Oh, okay.
Fantastic workers. They don't have any paperwork, so I called our county attorney, Mike. Hire a couple. I mean,
Jill and Shannon are online right
they
now.
have no paperwork.
It's so fun.
But they're all working.
We got it.
7 days a week.
Okay, so we are voting, we have two applications for membership. We have a membership application for
So
Brian.
a couple of them said to me, well, we
He's
threw
with
all of our
Mercy One.
paperwork away
He
at the border.
attended the Thursday evening meeting and has said that the Thursdays will probably work better for him.
No
And he
registration,
also
no
attached a check to his
something.
application, so I do feel like we probably want to vote on this.
Yeah.
So all those in, are
I
doing
don't mind
motion.
it being a right now.
I know your speakers.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
And,
nay. Okay.
little more.
The second membership application that Andrew has and will definitely get to Jill and to Susie
What's that?
is
I
for
couldn't
Sabrina.
I got
So do I have a
hearing aid,
motion?
which means I can hear everything, including all of that.
All those in
stuff.
favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
And then, so
Motion
what
second.
happens, they are about the fourth level.
We adjourned.
Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Awesome.
It's too good at keeping.
Get out of the car.
They're all working. So if they had paper,